It's true. Yes, this sweater is very itchy. But it's cute, so we're not changing. You get it, you understand me. When people think of Wario games, I feel like they primarily think of like the Wario minigame series, like Wario World, or even maybe some of the older platform games like Wario Land. But if you were cooler than me, you may have owned Wario World in the past. Just a couple years ago, I was finally able to get my hands on Wario World, and I played it for the first time back in like 2022, and I was genuinely really surprised at how expansive a Wario 3D game was made. Finding a copy for Wario World was actually pretty difficult. It felt like there was such slim pickings out there. Either many people just didn't want to give up their copy of Wario World, or there wasn't many copies for the game. Wario World is a 2003 platformer game developed by Treasure and then of course published by Nintendo for the GameCube. Now when I saw that it was developed by a company called Treasure, I have never heard of Treasure, so I had to go ahead and obviously do some digging. Treasure was founded back in the early 1990s, and the company name came from wanting to be a treasure to the industry. Don't we all, baby? Around that time of founding, the company had just over 10 people, which is pretty typical for a lot of early video game development companies. In their first years, Treasure developed games primarily for like the Sega Genesis, so it's kind of why I really haven't heard a ton of the games that Treasure was developing. I've never owned a Sega console. It sucks, I know. In 1994, Sega introduced the Sega Saturn technology to Treasure, and Treasure was like, yeah, this is really sick, and they were like very impressed with it. It was like totally capable of like, you know, making some really awesome 3D graphics. But Treasure saw that and said no. And they said that competition from 3D games did not concern them, which is kind of, I don't know, man. Why wouldn't you see that and be like, ah, yes, the gaming industry is developing, we should teeter into that? No. Then, of course, surprise, surprise, in the early 2000s, they had some trouble. So then they had to begin looking and developing licensed games instead of making their own, and that's when they began to work on Wario World. So it kind of just felt like they were in this position to be like, I guess we gotta do a licensed game. Give me Wario World. And quite recently, actually, Treasure announced back in 2022 that for their 30th anniversary, they are working on a highly requested game. And then nothing else since then, so I guess we'll see. But for Wario World, it was fairly well received by reviewers who praised the game's gameplay while criticizing its short length. And you actually see that with a couple GameCube games, like Luigi's Mansion. People are saying, wow, great game, very short. And this was honestly really surprising to me when I found out the game was a commercial success. It sold over 256,000 copies in the US, and it was then re-released for a Player's Choice title, which is what I was able to get my hands on. So I don't know why, within the past couple years, I felt like it's become a big rarity. The game's plot centers around Wario and his quest to regain his treasure and his castle from the evil gem Black Jewel. The villain Black Jewel is only seen in Wario World, but Wario does mention it in the game Fortune Street, which is basically a Monopoly game. I found out I've actually never heard of Fortune Street, and it's a Monopoly game with Dragon Quest characters and then Super Mario characters. I want to play that. I don't know why that is a collab, but I want to play it, you know? But in the game, Wario claims that a wand is a better treasure than a black jewel, hinting at the villain from Wario World. Even though the black jewel in Wario World is technically purple, I don't know. I don't know, man. I will say the story does not matter, and it's really only told in the beginning of the game, within like this like long scrolling text scene. It said that the jewel once fed on people's wishes to grow power, and it eventually grew so powerful it became a huge threat to civilization, sending armies of evil spirits across the land in an attempt to conquer the world. Sick. It then jumps over to a cutscene with Wario, and he's there, and he's got all his treasure and all his money, and the jewel kind of just pops up, and he's like, ah! And you're like, oh. Why do your arms look like that? Why are you from Courage the Cowardly Dog? What are you doing here? My theory is that Wario stole that jewel, right? So that's why it was there. Like, homeboy was just already there. I just had to make it make sense for me. Like, obviously, I don't know. It probably doesn't even matter. But yeah, essentially, like the rest of the game, you're getting Wario's money back. Kind of like, you know, when you want to like turn that $65 into 65 cents at the casino. Wario World's gameplay centers mainly on combating enemies, even though it requires some platform navigation, similar to like Super Mario 64 or Sunshine. I would say more like Sunshine with some of these bullshit ass fucking platform levels. How did I do this? Shut up, bitch! The controls are honestly very simple though. You got your running, your jumping. Who would have thought, you know? running and jumping in a video game. You got your little fighting moves and the hyper suction ability to collect your nearby coins. I was just as shocked as you are when I found out he was sucking all that shit up. Coins in the game really only help though with buying garlic to heal Wario, and you lose coins when you fall off the map. Let me explain this real quick, because you probably look at this and you're like, all right, bitch, what do you mean fall off the map? Where are you falling? And I'm like, oh, it's in the front. You fall off the front of the map. Right there, right here on your screen. Right there, you fall off the front. Can I pick this one up? Let's fall off the side. I hate that it's a thing. Oh shit, don't touch me. Oh, it's me, that's for me. Ah! But in order to advance in the game, the player must collect a certain amount of red diamonds in each level to unlock the boss fights. So like I said before, like the platform sections can be quite annoying, but they're really fun. I had a lot of fun with them. Way more fun than with the Super Mario Sunshine bullshit they had to deal with. There's just like a lot of mechanics that feel really clever about like moving around the area that I really enjoyed. And I will say the platform sections are way more fun than like the combat enemy areas, like the boss fights. My God. I'm just gonna say one thing about the designs of these bosses. Don't ever do that again. The boss fight mechanics are pretty okay for like the most part. There's some very awkward actions in a few boss fights, but you kind of get that with like any game really. But with some of those actions, you kind of get stuck in a boss fight for like a longer period of time when the boss fight could be seemingly shorter. Starting to hurt my wrist! Oh my God, dude, my wrist is hurting from all the spinning. And in the end of the game, you can actually get a couple different endings, which is really neat. The ending I got was Wario's back in his big old mansion, but I found out if you don't collect like a certain amount of those sprites out in the world, you can actually get like an ending where Wario lives in like a tent, like on a campground. This game is seriously like really special, and I don't think it gets really talked about enough or even praised enough, especially when it comes down to like Wario games. Like it's really not, I don't want to say not known. I think a lot of people do know about this game, but then again, they don't. I don't know. What's the word for that? Can someone tell me what the word for that is or how to phrase that correctly? Because I'm not gonna take the time and do that right now. I don't feel like it.